Oh, we can't do. We have to get a premium account to go live on X now, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, that happened a couple weeks ago. I found out.
Yes.
Okay.
But we're live.
Yep, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Sorry, a little technical glitch, something I didn't know about. Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable. Actually, I spelled weekly wrong. I just realized. So, unfortunately, Frank will probably most likely not be with us tonight, as he is in Tennessee at the Goals Conference. And he's shaking hands and rubbing elbows with a bunch of very important people down there. I'm sure he will give us a full update when he is back next week. With that being said, directly to my left is Michael Vasquez, dragon of the entire state of New York and political commentator extraordinaire. Politicians see him coming and try to go the other way because they are afraid of his questions.
That happens a lot. A lot.
And also with us tonight is we have our alternative voice, Jan Rains, and Dal Grimm. And you can find him on Grim Liberty on Rumble.
Good evening.
Well, folks, again, another very impactful week. However, we have some things that were left on the calendar from last week that we really should get into this week. The first thing I want to kind of get into is Georgia changing its election laws. And this is actually kind of important. Let's see. I've got it right here. Okay, so let me get this put up here real quick. This is actually from the state of Georgia, and it is SB 202. Senate Bill 202 was adopted by the Georgia General Assembly in 2021, brings about a number of changes for voters. Actually, I think that this is the wrong one.
Well, that's always good, Mike.
Sorry about that. I will actually get this one put up because this actually talks about, this is a news article from one of the Georgia papers. Okay, Republican state lawmakers revised Georgia election rules in time for the 2024 campaign season. And essentially, one of the biggest changes is, besides problems with various voter eligibilities, the county themselves can, if they believe there is reason, refuse to certify the results of the election, of their election, for that county. Okay, typically it would have to be done at the state level. Now that is being allowed to be done by the individual counties. If the counties think that there is cause for further investigation into an election, then they have the authority to not certify the results from their county. So that's going to be one of the biggest ones, which could actually result in the Georgia election taking several days to certify if some of these counties decide to withhold their certifications.
That also, I also see that there's a change to drop boxes.
Yes, there's been changes to drop boxes. There's also been changes
to absentee ballots. Yeah. So before the rule was that you didn't need a driver's license number or specified voter ID.
Right.
Now you do.
And also, I guess there's going to be a possible paper ballot watermark that's going to be put on the ballots as well. That will be hard to duplicate or replicate. And those are just some of the things that they are proposing for the Georgia, in Georgia. And basically, this comes to pass because of several things that happened during the 2020 election. And there's still a lot of contention over the actual results of the Georgia results in the 2020 presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we are almost into a new election, there's a lot of things that have been coming out, even recently, that things that happened in Georgia were not legitimate, and that election was not legitimate. And there are a lot of investigations that are still ongoing to try to figure out exactly what happened during the 2020 election in Georgia.
A lot of it focused around chain of custody or lack thereof, and that's what they're finding most of is the lack of chain of custody for things like mail-in and absentee ballots.
Well, they're also finding out that there's a lot of double counting of votes. There's been a lot of contention on that. There's been a laundry list of issues raised about the Georgia election.
Well, it's one of several states where we've seen, as much as the left would like to downplay it, we have seen that many of the last-minute laws that were put in place or attempted to be put in place in 2020 and in 2022, well, now they've gone through the legal system, and most of them have been found to be unconstitutional. They were improperly put into place either by state legislatures or according to state constitutions or the federal government, and they have been removed more often than not. It just goes to say that we should be having an audit, and this isn't that hard to do. It can be done, and it probably should be done automatically to regain the trust of the voters. There is absolutely nothing wrong with saying every state after an election, there is an automatic audit. Let's do that. It's basically a recall for the vote, and just do it. Go through. It's electronic. Just run it through a second time just to verify everything, and then you have people's trust back. But yet to say that is to be evil somehow.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, okay? As contentious as 2020's election was, the fact that they were fighting so hard to prevent audits from happening and so forth, and not just Georgia, but in multiple states. Honestly, if an audit is called for, regardless of what the reason is, that audit should happen.
If for no other reason than to make the public be reassured that their vote counted. It's throw out all the politics, left, right, I don't care. To make voters confident, just do an audit. It's
now,
very
here
simple.
is some big things that happened, and this is from the America First Policy Institute. Okay. There were multiple procedures that were changed or relaxed for 2020 as a result of the pandemic. Okay. One of the biggest things that happened was the Secretary of State decided for the first time ever to mail absentee ballots to every voter. Okay, and that is abnormal. Typically, if you want to vote absentee, you have to request an absentee ballot. The next thing is Georgia relaxed regulations pertaining to mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting by relaxing signature verification requirements and allowing the early opening of mail-in ballots. Again, citing the pandemic increased the number of absentee votes and mail-in ballots. Georgia also lacked residency verification, and voters were allowed to cast ballots in counties where they did not live. Okay, those were multiple procedures that changed during the 2020 election. Now, these are some of the documented irregulations and anomalies and fraud that have been uncovered. Okay, after the election, Secretary Raffensperger admitted that there were more than 100,000 obsolete and outdated voters on the rolls, 18,000 of whom were dead. A spectacular collapse in the Georgia voting system was documented and well known. Brand new, never before tried mass mail-in ballot system in 2020 had a ballot rejection rate 17 times less than the previous presidential election. Okay. Statistically, because of the increase in mail-in ballots, that number should have increased, not decreased, when compared to previous elections. Okay, inconsistencies were found in the results of risk-limiting audits, which examined ballots cast by voters whose Georgia residency was disputed. The inconsistencies were verified as true by Governor Brian Kemp. Fulton County experienced an unexplained 20,000 vote surge for Joe Biden and a 1,000 vote loss for Trump in the early morning hours the day after the election. The Secretary of State refused to implement critical updates to the voting machines before the 2020 election and still refuses to today. This is exposing Georgia voters to potential security risks, hacking, or fraud because of 4-year-old software.
I wonder if that came out of the Deos camp. There was a camp that we recently had a whole bunch of white hat hackers go in and try to breach voting machines and alter data and flip votes and all sorts of stuff. And what they found,
patriotic Frank.
Hoorah!
Good evening, everybody. I wasn't quite prepared to take the stage as I'm sorting through today's paperwork. You'll have to excuse the audio. I'm in a hotel room here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm exhausted. I am tired.
Well, we're going to go ahead and let you give us an update as to what's going on at the Goal Conference, and then let you get out of here because I know you've had a hell of a day today.
Well, I have another appointment later this evening that I have to keep. Always trying to move the ball forward, as they say. Yesterday, we arrived here at 9 o'clock in the morning and drove all through the night to get here. Got over here and we did the shoot up at the range yesterday. I cannot tell you until you have been to one of these events. You cannot comprehend the noise. You cannot comprehend the smoke. You can't go, but the one thing that you can't possibly quantify at all is the joy of seeing 500 people standing on a line. Everybody have a semi-automatic rifle, shotgun, lever actions, handguns, machine guns, all kinds of stuff, and everybody just letting loose for 5 minutes straight, as fast as they can, as loud as they can, reloading as fast as they can, as many times as they can. The tables that the guns were all set up on, at the end of the first 5 minutes, had literally 2 inches on the ground of solid brass.
That's awesome.
Just laying there. It was insane. It was insane.
Oh, that's like heaven.
It was crazy. I didn't shoot nearly as much as I would like to have shot. It wasn't as important for me to do the shooting so much as it was for me to get some video, meet some of the people that were there, set up interviews and stuff for the next couple of days. And today was the same thing on the show floor. Today was media day. We had 5 or 6 hours on the floor, just ourselves and all the different manufacturers. I didn't speak to a single gun manufacturer today. I had no point in speaking to gun manufacturers. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Oh, he is. Yeah. A little thing about this. If you're importing the video over from you, that's not the sound of the machine gun you're hearing. That's the sound of audio I had to dub over because my microphone blew out. Right there in the middle of the red shirt, that's Steve Bozick, letting loose with a couple of 1911s that he found that he was having some fun with. But today met a bunch of really cool people. Had the opportunity to meet with a bunch of other organizations, some 501c3s that are very much like-minded. Rekindled some other relationships with some people that we've spoken to in the past, getting some things set up and established for a future. It was a great day. We just came back from dinner with Dick Heller and Stephen Williford, the barefoot defender and the grandfather of the Second Amendment, Dick Heller. We just had dinner with them a few minutes ago. It's been a great couple of days so far. The one thing that was funny though, I met with Eric Pratt yesterday, who's the president of GOA, president and founder.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, this guy's really impressive. I've never met Eric before. Okay. He doesn't know my face from Adam. At least I thought. I walked up to him at the range day yesterday, and I had my media credentials actually in my shirt. I come over and I said, "Hey, Eric, how you doing?" I says, "Hey, you guys did a great job, this and that." And he goes, "You're Frank Johnson, right?" And I says, "Yeah." He goes, "You're speaking, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "You're 10:30 on Saturday in the forum." I was so impressed. This is like 100 different people that are up there to speak. He knows my name, what time I'm going to speak, in what part of the convention center I'm going to speak. I said, I was really impressed with how much he knew. I said, you realize there's one thing you don't know. And he's what? I said, you have no idea what I'm speaking about. Nobody does. Nobody has a copy of my script or my speech. Nobody has a transcript. Nobody has any idea at all, what I'm speaking of. He said, Dick Heller said to trust you. So I'm trusting you.
That's a nice statement there.
That carried a lot of weight. So 10:30 in the morning. We still haven't gotten any information yet as to how they're going to be live streaming it. They said that they will. So if you find Gun Owners of America on Rumble, they should have a couple of different channels that they occupy that they're going to be doing the live streaming from. If not, we have the camera gear. We'll at least get my segment done. It's a 5-minute speech. It ain't a big deal. We'll get it videoed, and I'll put it up on YouTube as soon as I possibly can. Minimal amount of editing. This way I'll get it up on the website, and everybody could hear it.
Looking forward to it.
What's that, Vess?
I'm looking forward to it. I mean,
okay.
I've actually unlike maybe pretty much everyone here on the panel, I've actually been around you when you've made presentations and done public speaking. I know you can do it, and I know you do it well. So I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Well-
he's incredible when he's in front of an audience.
America's grandpa.
I'm just fat. But no, I listen, telling my story is one thing, but trying to put it in, nobody just wants to hear you go up and tell your story. When you're an event like this, you have to put it into some sort of a context that makes it relatable to the event that you're at and the people that you're speaking to. So I wrapped it up in a nice little package, and some of the exemplars that I will be using in the speech will be in the audience. So I'll be able to have some callbacks to some of the people that I'm going to be speaking about are going to be sitting right there. So it should be pretty fun. I'm looking forward to it. I'm not nearly as nervous as I thought I would be. I read through the speech once just so I could remember it. I'm done. I'm not touching it again. There was one name I just kept getting hung up on, but now I've committed it to memory. So tomorrow I'll probably just repeat that one name over and over and over again for 5 minutes, or until somebody pulls a Biden and yanks me off the stage. But but I think we'll be good. But listen, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to try to listen to you on the phone in the background. I got a couple other things I got to take care of. P.S. I actually met today this young lady named Lexi Lagan,
Oh yeah.
Olympic gold medalist in pellet shooting.
Oh, cool.
She was at the event today. She represented America over in France. Her and her team brought home the gold.
Awesome.
love that.
Fantastic.
She's a world champion shooter, and she's going to be joining us here on the show.
Well, there you go. Good deal.
So yeah, like I said, making waves.
Very good.
The rest of the team made waves too. They just came up from the pool. You didn't see them. They snuck in under the camera. As I was
No, they could have walked past. It's fine.
No, you don't see how they're dressed.
Oh.
Sorry. I'll leave it with you. Listen, you guys, I'll catch up with you guys soon. Until next weekend, be safe, shoot straight. Love you guys. Having a great time. Say a prayer. I don't make a fool out of myself and us for tomorrow.
You're going to be awesome, Frank.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
break a leg.
All right, guys. Love you. Be safe.
Love
All
you
right.
too.
Take
care.
care.
Frank.
I'm glad he was able to make it.
Yeah, I am too. I'm glad he was able to pop in for just a few minutes, give us a little bit of an update.
I know we're talking about Georgia and elections and this and that, but I also wanted to throw in here because it is about.
I want to hold you just for a second. Very good friend of ours showed up in the audience tonight, Agent Black. We haven't seen him for a while. Welcome, Agent Black. I'm glad you could make it tonight. I know things are getting a little dicey over there in the UK. And make sure you stay tuned because we have some stuff to talk about the EU and Elon Musk later on. So I'm sure you'll want to be involved with that. So go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, I wanted to know if you guys saw that. She was in. I don't remember what city it was in. I'd have to pull it back up on my phone. But the gal in Arizona that just got convicted for election interference because she saved all the data that they wanted to destroy.
Yeah.
Oh, the whistleblower. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
trying to prosecute
She wasn't a whistleblower. She was actually in. Let me see if I can pull it up. I think I posted it in the group. But she just got convicted on, I think it was 5 of 7 charges they convicted her on.
Huh.
Yeah. Fake elector scheme.
Oh, so she was scamming.
But she wasn't a fake elector. She was within the.
And she pled guilty.
Well, a lot of people have pled guilty to this is like with J6 and several other of these situations where
Lorraine Pellegrino.
the cost of these things people don't realize. You're talking about fighting against an entire state which has virtually unlimited funds. You're talking about, for many people, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to go through the entire court system. If they're fighting for their innocence, they will literally be bankrupted. We've seen this happen several times in these cases, which is essentially a financial coercion to cause people to take a lesser count and say, okay, I'm guilty, because they can't afford to fight all the way through.
And actually, that's
a
not the
big problem.
case that.
No, I was going to say, you said she pled guilty. This gal didn't plead guilty. She went to court and she was found guilty. I think it was 5 of the 7 counts. And it was because she refused to delete the information that she was sworn to save for audits.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that now.
Yeah, I wasn't following that this week. But I do know that there have been, in Arizona, there's been a lot of problems with their case. I mean, there's been a lot of information that has been withheld from the public. Hal, in the comments, was bringing it up a little bit earlier. As a matter of fact, I think I have his comment here. Where is it, Hal? He was in the comments, and there it is. And Hal, and it's always great to see Hal, Hot Chicks, Dow's with me, but Agent Black. It's great to see all these voices here. And Hal had mentioned Arizona went through multiple audits, and one certain voter still doesn't trust the results. He's talking about Carrie Lake, by the way. Carrie Lake, who's running right now for an election. She has a lot of support behind her because a lot of people also agree that there were a lot of problems in that. Matter of fact, as I mentioned to him, there were several issues found. And it's very much like New York Citizens audit, where private citizens did an audit, but the state refuses to accept the information, even though this is all information from the state. There was an audit done on Maricopa County, not the entire state. And what we do know, and this was, here it is, and as revealed, according to the AP News on April 19th of 2023, we know for a fact that the state was withholding, the state legislature of Arizona was holding back emails and other documents that were pertinent to go through the audit to find out if the election was as was the best election that it could be. And documents were withheld. And of course, the courts did side with the legislature, but that doesn't help people have confidence. That's the problem. That's the thing we're talking about with these audits. And when we have individuals, whistleblowers and others, who are saying, no, there's more information that the public should have access to determine, is this the best process? Is this the best way to make sure my vote counts? And we're not getting that information. That's the problem. We're not seeing, when they're saying, oh, we've done an audit. Yeah, but you also withheld half the information or critical information that would have changed the results. That's not an audit. I have no faith.
I found it. Her name is Tina Peters. She was found guilty on 7 of 10 charges simply for preserving the records on the Dominion voting machines after the 2020 election. The judge refused nearly all of her witnesses and excluded virtually all of her defense. She was found guilty on attempted to influence a public servant. She was found guilty on attempt to influence another public servant.
7 charges.
Yep, she was found guilty to attempt to influence a public servant, guilty to conspiracy to commit criminal impersonation, guilty of official misconduct, guilty of a violation of duty, and guilty of a failure to comply with SOS requirements. Now, here we go again with a judge who did not allow her any defense whatsoever. She did her job by preserving the records.
Again, this goes back to the same thing. There are documents and information that the public should have, if for no other reason to give the public confidence in the status of an election, and that information is being withheld without justification, without clarification, without transparency, and therefore people don't have trust and faith in the system. This is part of the reason why apathy is so high across the country. Part of the reason why in an off year, which is not a non-presidential, non-midterm, the odd years in elections, we're seeing in many states only 30% of people, sometimes even less, are showing up to vote. And in election years,
Colorado, this wasn't Arizona.
Yeah. And even in election years, you're seeing only about 58 to 63% of people actually showing up to vote. It's because we have less confidence. We need to increase the confidence, which is why I would love to see states automatically do an audit after every election, irregardless of who wins or who was running or what level of government was, what election. It doesn't matter if it was presidential or midterm or off year. Just do the audit. Because we keep finding these cases of individuals who have, and I know the left loves to say, well, no one's done any interference. No one's messed with anything. Yet we find case after case, always in the off years, we find out about all these people who have actually done what we are told can't happen, and they're getting arrested and they're being charged and they're being found guilty. This is a problem.
Well, and aren't they supposed to hold the records for X amount of years anytime there's an election?
That varies state by state.
Yeah. That's why we should have, and it doesn't need to be federal. We don't need the federal government involved in this, and it shouldn't be involved in this. This is a state issue. Every state should deal with this on their own because we're talking about state elections as well as federal elections, but every state should do this. And, Agent Black brings up a very big thing. Same day voting is a problem. Rather, when you have people who are registering and voting on the same day, that's a problem. And so is extended days. The more days that you have for someone to vote, and we have to collect those votes, and then we have to count those votes, and we have to make sure those votes are secure. You're adding more risk. You're adding more areas and elements of error to occur. You're multiplying the risk. Reduce it. We went through how many hundreds of years we had one day to vote. Everyone went out and voted. Done. That's all you need. The problem, they keep saying, but we need to make it easier. It is simple. There is no one in America who isn't voting because they can't vote. Every American citizen can vote. They don't want to. And making it a week-long process or a month-long process and having them be able to mail it in or have it electronic, that's not making people more interested in voting. They don't trust the system. They don't trust the candidates. There is apathy. You're not going to fix that by trying to make it simple or by increasing the number of days, multiplying the risk factors, increasing the number of errors, and making them even less confident.
No,
you need to go the other way.
No, but what it does do is it makes people more open to manipulation through legal ballot harvesting.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yes, and we've seen people who have been arrested for that and convicted of that several times in several of the most recent elections. That is a fact. It is happening. So again, we need to making it a longer process. I mean, soon we're going to be talking about, early voting started 6 months from the actual election day. I mean, that sounds ridiculous,
Well,
but Why not?
Here real soon, we are going to see an election get over and early voting will start for the next election.
I mean, why not? It's that stupid and it doesn't make sense. And really, think about it. We have people who will be voting in September. This is half a month away. They're going to be voting in September before and during the time that Kamala is going to have her first debate. She doesn't even, if you go to her website right now, there is 0 policy positions. In fact, Mike, before we were in the green room before the show started, we see that there are some Democrats saying that Kamala shouldn't even tell the public what she stands for and what she plans to do until after the election. Mike, bring that up if you still got that link. This is ridiculous, folks.
Now,
this
here is Harris Wals. Okay.
Yeah, no positions.
Website.
This is live. There's no positions. We showed everyone this last week. There's no positions.
Meet Kamala Harris.
Yeah, those are the bios. It's the same as last week. Still got the bios. Has
Okay, you got a
zero
bio
policy.
for Wals now.
Same thing, bio, which they did update.
And they're literally forced to update it because of questions about his
Because he lied.
service record.
It's not questions. He lied. He lied to the American people.
Okay. Place for you to get involved.
Yeah, they still don't have any
There's
policies.
nothing on it. Now,
No.
let me get up.
The article that we were talking about beforehand.
Yeah, I got to get into it.
Okay, while you're bringing that up. So we literally, it's not making people more confident seeing that Kamala is on stage and she's asking for money, asking for volunteers. She's asking and expecting people to vote for her, and no one knows what she stands for. No one knows what she will do. And I know people, but Mike, she just came out today with this idea about a price gouging, which is literally useless. Yeah? Well, it's not in writing. So if you didn't see the speech, if you didn't hear the speech, you don't know what she stands for. She has ultimate denial. She can say, I just didn't say it. Oh, that was just AI. It's not in writing. It's not real. She said it. To whom? She has a bunch of speeches. She said in 2019 she didn't believe in fracking. Today she says she believes in fracking. She was against funding the police in 2019. Now she seems to be all in favor of the funding the police. She's flip-flopping everywhere. How can you tell me I can trust her when there's nothing actually written down that I can hold her to?
Literally, right here, Dem lawmakers want to wait until after Harris wins to set policy agenda.
And this is coming from Politico. So it's a
Which is
credible news
left-leaning.
source.
Okay. Congressional Democrats are largely content to wait until after the election for Kamala Harris to drill down on her policy agenda.
Well,
Very
basically
first
that
one.
Basically, that tells me right there that they don't think she's going to win. Because why would they come out and say, we're okay with it? When we know that people vote on not just quote unquote on the left of their feelers, but people want to hear your policy.
If somebody doesn't have policies, they can make all kinds of sound bites. But if they don't have any written policies, you can't attack their positions.
Well, it's a trick to get more votes because there's nothing to hold against them,
Right.
because they
There's
stand
nothing
for
to
nothing.
hold them accountable for.
Well, Trump's going to eat her up come these debates.
I hope so, but then again, what's he
we
going to
don't know
target?
that.
He has no policy position to target against her. They're hiding. They are literally hiding her because they know once she comes out with her agenda, she's going to lose support. Because right now, you can imagine she supports anything you want. If you're a Democrat, a leftist, left-leaning, you're independent, you can project anything you want onto her, because she's everything and anything to everyone, because she won't say what she actually is or what she actually wants. And that's a problem. I mean, it's very appealing. This is basically, it's kind of like why Keanu Reeves does so well in movies. Why? He's a blank. He allows you to insert yourself into his character, so you're involved. You're more emotionally entangled. With what he's doing. You're injecting yourself, and that's the same thing Kamala is doing. Same thing with Obama. This is why they called them empty suits, because they stood for nothing. You could put yourself in there and say, I feel like I'm them. Well, that's great for a movie. That's great for entertainment. It's horrendous for politics. Now, I will say this. Let me add this in, and now I'll shut up for a minute. But I do believe that Democrats don't actually want or expect Kamala and Tim Walz to win. They only expect them to energize the progressive base, to get them to vote so that they can maintain their positions and power in Congress and the Senate. They're not supposed to win. They're just supposed to bring people to actually vote.
This is supposedly what her economic policy is. Eliminating medical debt for millions of Americans.
How?
Banning grocery and food price gouging.
That's going to be government food controls.
Costs. Providing $25,000 subsidy for first-time home buyers. And offering $6,000 child tax credit per child for the first year of life.
Who's paying for
number
this?
one, first off, she doesn't go into how she's going to do any of this.
How would she pass it? How is it going to be paid for? Yeah.
Okay. None of it. Okay. She doesn't go into any type of implications, what this is going to mean for people or anything. Okay. These are just literally things that she is, for lack of a better word, pulling out of her ass.
No. These are marketing elements. These are polls. We have seen polls that have been done by YouGov and many other pollsters for Biden. These are topics and issues that the left are very much drawn towards, that they're very interested in, and they're wonderful sound bites. As an example, she said, Trump came out a month ago and said, hey, no, if you're working for tips, you pay no taxes. He wants to pass that idea. She came out and said the same thing. Why? Because it was popular. Earlier this week, J.D. Vance came out and said he wants to increase the child tax credit, or otherwise some people abbreviate it to the CTC. He wanted to increase it from $3,600 to $5,000 for families. And now Kamala came out and said, no, that's a really great idea. And people love that. So I'm going to go $6,000. How are you going to pay for it? We're talking about $2, possibly $3 trillion. Where's that money coming from? Again, $2 to $3 trillion. Where's that money coming from? That's half of all the money that our government is spending right now. We spend about $6 trillion. We're talking about an additional $2 trillion on top of the $6 we're spending. That is literally half of all the money that we bring in. Roughly $2 trillion is about half of all the taxes collected in a given year. We get about $4.3 trillion every year. Where's this money coming from? This is why they're saying the game, they're talking about it, but they won't put it into writing. They don't want you to see the details, because just like I did earlier today, I can in 1 minute tell you that Kamala Harris has zero chance of reducing food prices, and she's not trying. And she knows it. 1 minute.
Yeah, right here. As she picks up the mantle from President Joe Biden, heads into the Energized Convention next week, the Democratic nominee is slowly rolling out some policy proposals and disavowing some of her former positions. But mostly she's leaning into a general positive message that has wider appeal, specifically because it is light on the details.
There you go.
Democratic lawmakers call it a savvy strategy. They'd rather lay out a specific plan post November when the potential president elect Harris would have to staff up her administration and determine her governing priorities. She doesn't need to negotiate against herself. We've got the biggest possible tent right now, said Rep. Ann McLean Custer, Democrat, New Hampshire, chair of the centrist New Democrats. I don't think there's a real strong reason for her to try to weed out any points of view right now.
Okay, and that stop right there. That is Nancy Pelosi saying you have to pass the bill to find out what's in the bill. This is a blank contract, and they're telling you to sign on the dotted line, and they'll fill in the details sometime later. Just trust them. This is why people don't want to vote. This is why people have a problem with our system right now. What she's doing right now. She was never elected. She was never voted in to the position. She's a candidate. No one voted for her. She never ran. No one thought she was an option. And now she's suddenly been anointed, and she won't tell people anything. This is evil. This is destroying our system. Sorry, I'm
right
very
here,
about this.
Here is why she's an illegitimate candidate. Harris skipped the typical policy-heavy competitive primary process, despite not being an incumbent president. Okay, she didn't primary. Nobody voted for her.
I would
Not
love to hear.
a single person voted for Harris to be the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party.
She can't even justify why she is running or why people should vote for her, besides saying that she is a woman and she is a woman of color, which are check boxes. They're not reasons to vote for anyone for anything. And I would love to hear any Democrat at this moment tell me, why should you vote for her? What is the appeal? What's a reason to vote for her besides she's a Democrat, she's female, and she's a woman of color? Okay, those are all characteristics. None of them are substantive.
Well, we know
Give me
the
a substantive reason. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We know the main reason it might not be substantive. It's not Trump. That's their whole thing.
Which is not substantive. That doesn't mean anything. You know what? Putin isn't Trump. Kim Jong-un is not Trump. You know, Chairman Xi of the Chinese Communist Party is not Trump. Maduro is not Trump. Castro is not. We can go through a lot of really vile people in this world. Justin Trudeau, Emmanuel Macron, they're not. Keir Starmer, they're not Trump. They're not good either. That's not a reason.
I said it was
right here.
I know, but I'm giving emphasis to that. You're right, Jan. You are right, and I'm just giving emphasis of the examples of like it's that obvious. It should be anyway.
Here, a House Democrat who spoke under anonymity said this: they have very little knowledge about who she is, what her job has actually been. They know Trump. They know what his policies are. They don't know Kamala. And so Kamala has a ton of room right now to define herself.
Which she won't do because they're utilizing the Kasich effect.
Well, if she doesn't define herself, they don't have anything to argue against her about.
Right. That's the Kasich effect. When Kasich came in as a candidate, nobody knew who he was, and he enjoyed a really huge bump in the polls because people were like, well, we don't know who he is, but he seems to be better than the other guy, until they found out that Kasich was an empty suit. And then, he just kind of fell by the wayside.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just very upsetting. It is. This is how
if you look at what Harris has done so far, forget what she said, right? If we follow her rise through politics and the things that we've been allowed to see of her actions, not her speech, but her actions. As far as I'm concerned, she's a communist. She's straight up. She
no.
is. Yeah,
She's
she's
not
a
a communist. She's not. She's progressive, not a communist.
And so far as what she is going to allow the American populace to do in order to live, she effectively wants to use communist controls on the populace.
I honestly,
The food,
looking at her record, I would say that she's a very bad progressive, and most of all, she's just abject ambition. She just wants power. She's worse than Hillary Clinton in that aspect.
Yeah.
At least Hillary Clinton had a plan of what she would do with the power. I didn't like her, but at least she had a plan. Kamala Harris has no plan. She just wants power. She doesn't have a reason. She doesn't have a justification. She doesn't know what to do when she gets it. I'm talking about looking at her record. She will do whatever is politically expedient at that moment to get her to the next level. That is her career. That's her time as DA, as AG, as Senate. She will do whatever it takes, pass and believe anything that is popular, so long as it keeps her in power and gives her a chance to have more power. That is her record. And when you actually sit down and look for her to do something, as in what's her record as VP, notice they don't want to talk about what did she do as VP. She went to South Korea twice, insulted the entire nation, increased tensions between America and South Korea, one of our allies that we have a treaty with. She went on a meeting to South American countries about immigration. She went to one meeting and did nothing else. We have record illegal immigration in our country, open borders, infrastructure being destroyed in New York, Boston, Chicago, Detroit, LA. She's been absolutely inept in every single thing that she has touched.
and I won't dispute that, but how does she come up with the idea then of retaining prisoners in a prison system for slave labor?
Because it was politically expedient to make her look like she's tough on crime. That's one. Two, it also helped to benefit these. And this is a fact, by the way, folks. Look this up. She literally did keep people in jail longer than their sentence. She literally did not release a death row inmate who should have been freed. Courts said, no, release this man. And she didn't. And she did this in part because it helped the cronies, some of the benefactors, the donors, the businesses that were donating to the Democratic Party and to herself. It was beneficial to them to have these cheap laborers continue to provide the work.
See, and that type of maliciousness, whether she thought of it or not, the fact that she's willing to execute on that shows that she's just smart enough to be dangerous. I'm telling you, it's not a hard thing. It's not a hard leap to go and look at what she said about the food controls, for example. I'm going to fight price gouging. Okay, how are you going to do that? I'm going to do that by controlling the ability of corporations to fix prices on food. Who else did that? FDR tried that, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? So what happens whenever you try to price fix for commodities like food? You drive down supply. We already have a driven down supply because of the 30% of food loss around the world, thanks to the conflict in Ukraine. We're like one step away from bread lines, and she knows that. And she's going to talk about government controls for food prices. That means that the government also controls rationing on who gets the supply. And they've already talked about the food deserts in the cities. She's just smart enough and recognizes a power control system that could be the food. And that's just one aspect. I'm telling you.
Well,
we can laugh at the fact that we call her a communist. You can go ahead and you can throw it away, but she understands the command and control function of communism when it comes to the people, and she has no problems utilizing it for her benefit, so that they can live like kings of the or like nobility of the aristocracy of the feudal period, while the rest of us get to play in the dirt.
oh, absolutely. I think she's very autocratic, but I don't think she's a communist. There's a difference, and it may sound like semantics to some people listening in. It makes a difference. I deal with politics. It makes a difference because they're not the same, and there are aspects that are, both of them are absolutely bad. Both of them destroy America, but they destroy it in different ways. But it's still destruction. So I agree with you there, Dow, that it is destructive, that she is more than willing and aware that she is destructive, but I don't think she cares. Now, I know we're talking about Kamala, but I know we're taking time away from a couple of the other things we wanted to talk about, because we did want to talk about Tim Walz, Governor Tim Walz, the VP, the anointed VP pick.
Yeah.
Because of his financial record. Last week we were talking about his stolen valor, which is a fact, and that he is a coward. These are my words. He is a coward. He's an abject, absolute coward.
Yeah, he is.
But there's more. There's more about this wonderful coward who helped destroy Minneapolis, allowing an insurrectionist organization to hold the city at hostage and $2 billion worth of damage and destroying people's lives for generations to come. But you guys wanted to talk, I know it was on the list, we wanted to talk about his financial record. So let's segue into that.
Well, we started discussing last week a little bit about his what he is making off of all of his pensions.
Yeah.
Okay, which is something that is completely overlooked and neglected by any media source. Okay, the fact is that he has a pension from when he was a school teacher, which he's a school teacher at the same time that he is serving in the Army National Guard. Okay, he has a pension from the Army National Guard from his service there. Okay. On top of that, he has a pension from when he was elected to office, federal office. He draws a federal pension there. And most recently, he is going to be drawing a pension for being governor. Okay, so right there are 4 pensions that he's going to be drawing on. Now, his last income tax, he claimed $165,000 is what he earned. Now, we have to remember that federal income taxes do not include pensions from federal service, i.e., his military service and his service as, what was he, a senator?
No, House.
I don't remember.
House of Representatives.
Yeah, House. Okay. He does not, those aren't reported on federal income taxes. Okay. Once you serve 12 years, I think it is, in the House of Representatives, you're
3 terms.
to,
No, it's 6 years, 3 terms.
Okay. Once you serve 6 years, you are entitled to a full pension with the House of Representatives. Okay. So he is drawing his full salary from when he was a member of the House of Representatives. And that's not what his salary was when he was elected into office. That was his salary when he left office. Okay. He also draws a full pension from his, again, salary for being governor in the state of Minnesota, which he objectively failed. as governor. Minnesota's economy is starting to crash because of a lot of the policies that he's put into place. Minnesota typically has been a state that has had a budget surplus because of policies that have been implemented under his administration. It is projected that Minnesota will actually start experiencing budget deficits in the very near future. He's also managed to, even though his state has experienced budgets surpluses, he has managed to compound on Minnesota's debt as well. Okay, so he has literally taken a prosperous state and turned them into a state that is going to be literally experiencing budget shortfalls and going further and further in debt as they try to make up for the budget deficits that they are going to be forced to endure in the coming years.
No, I think it's going to be incredible.
Okay, and this is the guy that we want that is a heartbeat away from the presidency? No, I don't think so. Okay, his track record is literally proven when he was the executive officer of the state of Minnesota.
Well, I've already declared my bias, which is based on the fact that my problem, separate, forget that I'm a conservative Republican. Forget that. These people, Tim Wals, aided and abetted insurrectionists in destroying an American city and destroying American citizens' lives. He lied about his support of the American citizen. He lied to Americans about his service. He was never in combat. He's claiming he wants all the accolades. He wants all the benefit. He wants to use the service of others, the blood and sweat of others, to promote himself. I can't trust a human being that does that. That's not selfless. That's selfish. That is someone I cannot trust. And Kamala is exactly the same. I can't trust these people.
Let's talk about his military record here for a second, because there are several people that have brought up that he has supposedly better credentials and awards than J.D. Vance does.
And these are obviously people
So
who
we
never
are
served.
actually going to dig into this for just a second, since we are on this topic. Give me just a second. I'll get this pulled up here. So essentially, there's a bunch of people that are claiming that in his 24 years that Mr. Wals was able to accomplish more and receive more accolades and awards than J.D. Vance did in his 4 years. Okay, now mind you, they're both enlisted. And I'm going to start down here with Walls' achievements as a retired Master Sergeant of the Army. Okay, that had a temporary appointment as an acting Command Sergeant Major. Okay, he received an Army Commendation Medal. Basically, that's Good Conduct Medal. Army Achievement Medals. Army Reserve Components Achievement Medal. Global War on Terrorism Medal. Anyone in the military during the Global War on Terrorism got this medal. Armed Forces Reserve Medal. Non-commissioned officer professional ribbon. That's just a ribbon that says he was a non-commissioned officer. Army Service Ribbon means he served in the Army. Reserve Components Overseas Training Ribbon meant that he was deployed overseas temporarily. And National Defense Service Medal. Okay, because he had a tangential supporting role to action in Afghanistan and in Iraq. From Italy, he rates the National Defense Service Medal.
He got an Italian vacation while the troops were fighting in Afghanistan. Oh my God, what a wonderful. His record is the record of a paper pusher. He is the guy.
He literally, most of these ribbons and so forth are ones that you automatically get because you achieved a certain rank or you made it so many years without having a detrimental mark on your record.
The military equivalent of participation prizes.
Okay, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
Global War on Terrorism, like I said, every member of the military received that if they served during the time that the Global War on Terrorism was going. Armed Forces Reserve Medal, that means that he was a part of the Armed Forces Reserves. That's a part of the National Guard. I mean, literally everything on here, there is nothing that isn't an attaboy, a participation medal.
But he had
Nothing.
PTSD.
I still got to find that.
Okay. Now I'm going to go up here and we're going to review. Now, mind you, another thing, the Army is a lot more liberal in its granting of medals.
No, they just
Marine
like having
Corps does not
placards.
grant medals for everything.
The Army gives you.
It's very hard in a lot of cases to get any type of medals in the Marine Corps.
No, and it's pretty hard in the Army not to get a medal. They love having that little placard to make themselves like, oh my God, look at all this medal I have here. Yeah, not so much.
It's almost as ostentatious as the Soviets.
Well, they're trying.
So here is J.D. Vance's record, according to his work. Marine Corps Good Conduct Medal. Every Marine gets that if they manage to stay out of trouble for 3 years. Okay. Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medal. Typically, what that amounts to is that his unit was able to did something that they were recognized for. Iraq Campaign Medal. That means he'd served in a combat zone and actively served in combat. Sea Service Deployment Ribbon. That means that he was deployed overseas. Global War on Terrorism, like I said, every member of the military during the Global War on Terrorism received this medal. National Defense Service Medal. Again, that's another one of those that if you were in and actively engaged in some part, even if it's in a supporting role, of operations that were going on in Afghanistan and Iraq, you received the National Defense Service Medal. Okay.
I think the average person in America who knows nothing about the military, and considering our military at most has about 2 million, we only have 2 million people serving in the military at any given time. So out of 350 million people, we're talking about less than 1% of the population. And then there's the family and friends, and there are also others who know about it. Let's call it 5% of the nation really knows anything about all of this. The simplest way to say, yeah, J.D. Vance served with blood, sweat, and tears on the front line, and Tim Wals served pushing papers. Not saying
this one
that's
right
not,
here, is
That's
the
it.
one that really stands out of all of them. Okay.
But I'm not trying to put down.
You could actually say that those are participation ribbons as well. They're the Marine Corps version of participation ribbons.
Absolutely.
That
But-
Iraq campaign medal meant that he served in Iraq in a combat zone.
And that's the difference. And again, I'm not saying anything bad about anybody who, we have officers, we have logistics, we have intelligence. Those are guys who push paper. Fantastic. We need them in the military. I'm not saying that they're not good servicemen and women. That's not what I'm saying. But
Now,
when we're
let's go
comparing,
on with
combat
this.
is the difference.
Okay. Under Wals's, okay, Wals culminated his career serving as command sergeant major, reaching the highest pay grade as for an enlisted member of E9. Okay, technically he was not an E9.
Yeah,
He
that's
was
a lie.
an E8. He was an acting command sergeant major. He never was promoted to an E9 because he hadn't met all the requirements to be promoted to E9. Okay,
Yeah.
That's why he ultimately retired one rank lower as master sergeant for benefit purposes. Okay, unless we can see paperwork where he was actually getting paid as an E9, he was an acting command sergeant major. Okay, he may have had the rank, but he did not have the pay rate.
It wasn't official. It was not
Right.
official. It was temporary.
Okay,
Wonder if he got ducked out and got away from that because he knew that an E9's pension probably wasn't worth being shot over in Iraq.
No, I truly believe that he looked at, I have to go to Iraq, and he thought I served, so I got the rank. I'll just tell everyone I did it and walk away. He didn't want to be there. He obviously didn't think it was important enough to get the E9 because all he had to do was stay, I think another year. He only had to stay another year, complete the coursework and stay one more year, and he would have got the E9 rank. And instead of doing that, he said, screw you guys, I'm done, and walked away from his own people. Again,
it was like
I
6
can't trust
months. It was like 4 to 6 months right after he announced that he was going in.
Okay, so what I've got up here right now is the military pay chart for enlisted members. Okay, it goes from E1 to E9.
Yeah, it's not a lot of money.
Okay, now this 2 or less, over 2, over 3, over 4, over 5 is number of years in service. Okay. Considering that he served 24 years, he would be over 24. As an E8, Wals retires, making 2/3 of $6,897.30. Okay. If he would have stayed and completed his E9, he would have had roughly about a $1,200 pay raise.
Rounding
Per
up,
month?
yeah. Rounding up.
Okay, because an E9 retirement is $8,072.70. Okay, and actually, if he would have stayed in to over 26, which he would have had if he would have went on his deployment, it would have been $8,544.
We really need to pay our enlisted way more for our enlisted. That's a 24-hour job. That's 24/7 every day. There are no vacations, no holidays. You're in, you're on. That's it. When you work it out, I mean, you have to work it out. Take that divided by 30 days a month, 24 hours a day, and then look at how much you're getting per hour. Some people go, oh, it's $8,000 a month. Yeah, that's a month divided by every day of the month, divided by every hour of every day. Yeah, it's pennies. Pennies, folks.
Yeah, I think I calculated it out to be less than minimum wage, and minimum wage at the time was $7.11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we do not see anything mentioning any other awards that Wals has received. Okay, which oddly enough, we do see that in Vance's. Vance received a letter of appreciation, at least 5 of them. Okay, 5th award. He had a meritorious mass, which means that he did something that his command thought was exemplary. He received a certificate of appreciation, and he also qualified rifle expert 2 times, and in the Marine Corps, that is a feat, and pistol expert as well. Okay, we see none of that in Mr. Wals' history.
Right. But the biggest thing is that regardless of how they served and what awards they received, only one of them is lying about where he was at the time and what his status was.
And
Ultimately.
that's the thing.
And that's
In
Wals.
fact,
Yeah. And there's only one who's traded in that lie for political benefit.
and in
That's
fact, J.D. Vance has outright admitted that he was not involved in any firefights, that his job was to literally be a journalist, a military correspondent on the ground in Iraq. He did not participate in firefights. He interviewed people that were on the front lines. Okay.
Right.
He's outright admitted that, but he was still in a combat zone, and there were chances that in the bases that he was located at that there could have been attacks on him.
Vance was a military correspondent that qualified so that he could also be a combatant if need be,
Yes.
right? That's
Yes.
yeah.
Well, every Marine is a combatant. Every
Well,
Marine is
all
a
Marines.
rifleman.
Now,
Very much.
this is one thing that everybody needs to know, and this is only true of Marines.
Yeah.
All Marines are considered first basic riflemen.
Yep.
That
That
is
is our
their
primary
primary MOS.
Yes.
They are assigned secondary MOSs. In my case, I was a 6414, an IFF radar identification technician.
Communications. Radio.
Was that?
Radio man.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was my case. Okay. J.D. Vance was a military correspondent. That was his secondary MOS after being an 0311, a basic military, basic
Right.
rifle.
Yep.
Okay, that is all Marines are basic riflemen. They may serve in other capacities, but they are trained initially in boot camp. That's one of the reasons why Marine Corps boot camp is so much longer than any other. They are trained as basic riflemen first.
Right.
Okay. I just want to answer this. Hal, so you already know the answer to this because you're trying to be. This is supposed to be, I guess, funny. I'm not sure how. But no, neither of them have a Presidential Medal of Freedom, nor do either of them have a Medal of Honor. And whether or not someone ranks one or the other higher is immaterial. That's not substantive. It doesn't matter. It doesn't apply to either of these men. And it doesn't matter how any one person may rank any one of these honors, because none of the candidates and none of the people we're talking about have gotten any of these awards. But the only one who did actually serve in combat, and the only one who did get an award for being in a combat zone, is J.D. Vance. The only one who lied about their service, the only one who lied to take advantage of the public, is Governor Tim Walz. That is factual. So no matter what you may think of the awards, no matter how you want to rank the various awards that are there, doesn't matter. Only one person lied to the American people, and that's Governor Tim Walz. And in my opinion, it cannot be said often enough or strongly enough that disqualifies him from all elected office, because he is a coward. He is a danger to America. He is untrustworthy. He is scum of the earth, in my opinion. And it has nothing to do with awards he didn't get. It has nothing to do with how other people feel about the ranks and the awards that he did or did not get. It has to do with his actions and his knowledge that he was lying. He actively, purposefully lied to you. This is the only election, guys, this is the only election where we literally have, on the Democrat side, we have Kamala and Tim Walz. They have actively lied to the American people about materially important facts. Substantive facts have been you can call it misinformation, disinformation. I call it's a flat out lie. Joe Biden is a mental giant. He's sharp as a tack. That is a lie. Who's in charge of America? We won't talk about that. I have honors and I've served in combat. These are lies that we are hearing, and people are saying, well, I might vote for them anyway. What the hell is wrong with you people?
And I want to interject also on Hal's comment here. Okay. If you talk to pretty much the majority of anyone that has won or not won, has earned the Medal of Honor, they will downplay their actions. And they will, almost every one of them will say, I was doing my job. Most of them don't want to be put in for a Medal of Honor.
Okay? 9 times
they
out of
don't
10,
think of themselves as heroes.
9 times out of 10, though, the Medal of Honor is awarded posthumously. One of the reasons why Trump said the thing that he did is because people are missing the context between Medal of Honor and Medal of Freedom. When you receive a Medal of Freedom, you usually are alive to receive it. You've done something positive enough for the nation that is great enough to be recognized with the highest civilian honor, and you're usually alive to do that. Whenever somebody receives the Medal of Honor, they're generally dead, and that means that the family is posthumously receiving that Medal of Honor. So it's easier and better to award for a more positive image, at least. And there's a better feeling when you award the Medal of Freedom because the person is alive. When you were awarding the Medal of Honor, it's still a very high honor. It's the same as the Medal of Freedom, but it's always connected to something that is super tragic, and so it is a sort of bittersweet award.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when Trump said he thinks, in his opinion, it's better to receive the Medal of Freedom, it's because he recognizes that during the awarding of a Medal of Freedom, that person is alive to receive it and bask in the glow of their accomplishments. Most of the time when you're awarding the Medal of Honor, you won't. And it does very little to comfort your family and your friends who have lost you in the action that earned you that medal. So it's a very bittersweet thing.
It's also a matter of perspective. Okay. Most people that we consider as heroes in the military do not think of themselves as heroes. They think of themselves as protecting the men to the right and to the left of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's their whole thought. Now you can say that we're doing some mental gymnastics or whatever. Okay, and I will be the first one to admit that Trump doesn't always think before he speaks.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also he's not the most elegant when he talks.
I don't care. It's
Okay,
not relevant.
But that's his opinion. And regardless of what his opinion is, okay, number one, we do not actually know his mindset when he made that statement. And if you claim that you do, then you need to find a new career as a prognosticator, because you are able to read minds. And that's something I definitely can't do.
Well, no, I'm not even, it's simple. Because we're not talking about Trump. Hal, you
No.
want to talk about Trump because you want us to stop talking about Wals. Because it's substantive. You want to talk about feelings because it's a distraction from what's substantive. We're talking about a vice presidential candidate. We're talking about the presidential candidate. We're
Okay,
talking
and actually,
and
you're
the
exactly
record.
right. Okay, this is a distraction.
Well, I
And it's
say,
literally to distract that Kamala Harris has zero platform to run on.
Yeah,
well,
go ahead, Jane.
She refuses to define her policies.
I say this. He wants to talk about Trump and wants us to talk about Trump. Let's talk about Trump. Trump and Elon did an interview on X this week. Did you guys happen to catch it?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I did. And so did tens of millions, if not hundreds of
1.3
millions.
million. Why I was on.
Yeah, when I was on, it was about 1.5 million, at least on where
It
I was
exceeded
at.
over 2 million live viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
that's not
insane.
and that's not to account for all the people that were watching others who were streaming the interview. So
And
I mean,
then
your
there's-
total,
Or
you start
to
totaling all
account
the
for all the
population.
people that watched it after.
Yeah.
It's estimated there's tens of millions that listen to that. And it's great because we have now seen Trump has done interviews with a hostile group of individuals. That would be the National Association of Black Journalists. He did one with two fringe organizations. That's the Bitcoin Convention and the Libertarian Party, their convention. And he did one friendly interview that was with Elon Musk. So here's the thing that you notice. Trump's talking to the American people on the fringe and parties that aren't his own. He's talking to people who don't like him. He's talking to people who do like him. He's telling the American people what he thinks and how he thinks.
Which
And
is
he's
equally
giving
as
them
important.
every option to find out whether or not they should vote for him. What do we know about Kamala Harris's motivations? I can tell you this. She has been invited by all the mainstream news media on the left, the friendly people of the left, and she told them all no. She was invited to speak to Elon Musk. She told him no. She has refused to talk and to explain her views, her mindset, her logic, or her thinking to the American people. But she has no problem having a website up for a month saying, give me money and vote for me, for no reason beyond she's a woman and she's a woman of color, which are, again, characteristics. She has no substance. But
And
Trump,
the thing is Musk has invited Harris, has made the same offer to Harris.
yes, and she said no.
And then that night she put out her people put out that you shouldn't be listening to it because all he was going to talk about was misinformation and how two rich guys got together to spew their hatred.
How would you know if you didn't listen? How would they know if they weren't listening? Oh, because they have feelings. Who cares about their feelings? I have my own feelings. I don't need their feelings. Thank you.
Over overall, I think it was a good interview.
I
Did
think
he
so.
say some things that he should have kept his mouth? Well, yeah, but we know it's Trump. He can't stop with some of his stuff that he does. But
Oh, I don't
mean,
know.
overall, I wish there would be more interviews like that.
Yeah. I mean,
No,
I
I-
listened to the interview twice, and really, there wasn't a whole lot in there that I would say detracted from him. What would you think would be a detraction from what he was discussing, other than the fact that they got a little confused about nuclear energy?
Well, there was a couple of times
I
his
think he
personal
spent too much
attacks and
time
stuff.
attacking and not enough time submitting what his policies, what he would do to actually make America great.
And I disagree with that. I disagree with that. I disagreed with you when I know we were watching it live. We were texting amongst each other, some of us, and I disagreed with you then, Mike. I disagree now. Yes, he did attack Kamala Harris. That is his nature. That is his ego. That is part of what Trump is. You don't have to like it. No one has to. But that didn't stop him from having a substantive conversation. And we aren't voting for, and people forget this all the time, we're not voting for a drinking buddy. We're not voting for a saint or a priest. We're voting for a president, which means we want him to be effective and efficient. I don't care anything else. Are they effective? Are they efficient? Do they have a plan to be effective and efficient? And listening to what Trump, he was detailing, this is what he thinks. This is why he thinks it's going to be effective and efficient. And he has a history, a track record that we can evaluate and that we can see where his thoughts were effective and efficient. So I thought it was a very good interview because it gave, even for people who didn't like him, it gave them a perspective of understanding who he is. And I think that's why he did it, to humanize him. Same reason why he went to the National Association of Black Journalists, the NABJ. He went there, and to why he went to the Libertarian Party and the Bitcoin convention, to let people know this is who I am. This is how I think. This is why I think this is the right way. Now, you don't have to like it.
You don't even have to agree with it.
You don't have to.
No.
You don't have to agree with it. But at least we have something substantive.
But at least we know where he stands.
We can work from there. We can make
We
changes.
absolutely don't know where Harris stands.
One criticism I do have of the interview, though, is that Trump had the opportunity to plug Agenda 20 or Agenda 47, and he should have. Like it specifically mentioning Agenda 47, not just talking about what he thinks and how he thinks, but say, look at Agenda 47. It's right there on my website. And you can, when we're done with the interview, just take a look. It's a beautiful thing, my website. It's a glorious thing. I love it. It's so good. People tell me all the time, it's easy to go around on the website.
Yeah,
just
but
take a look.
no, because everyone's turning that into, they want to say it's Project 2025. Here's the thing. The left makes it sound like they don't have an equivalent, which they do. Everyone who's won, that's what they do. That's why we have a transition team. They have an agenda. They have priorities. That's why they can say, what am I going to do in the first 100 days? Guess what? That's an agenda. That's a list of priorities.
Yeah, Biden's agenda was DEI.
Exactly. So, and literally it was. But so to say, oh my God, it's Project 2025. Okay.
Actually, Agent Black, there is an Agenda 47. It is actually on Trump's website.
Yeah. But I have no problem. Again, we have substance.
Yeah.
And then we have on the other side a void of substance, a purposive. Yet, and that's another factor. It's purposive. They will not talk. And I know this is political, and I know the political logic to let people know. The political logic is she needs to get through the convention without having any damage. Nothing is attached to her. So she can appeal to all the delegates, try to get them to rally together, because starting after Labor Day is the official election season. This is when the normal people, the 45% of America that's not involved with politics, this is when the majority of the rank and file voters in each of the parties, that's when they start paying attention to elections. It's after Labor Day. And so she needs to try and rally up all the troops she can without pissing any of them off. And there are many, many, many fractions and factions of the Democratic Party. She needs to try and herd up all those cats to hurl them in the same direction so that after Labor Day, it looks like she has momentum, because that's when all the voting starts. They start getting votes in. So she needs that more early momentum, because once she gets past Labor Day, she must start talking about what she actually believes in. She has to provide evidence, put it in writing, do interviews. She's going to be doing debates, and people are going to find out what she actually believes. And that is going to lose votes and lose support massively based on what she has said in 2019 and 2020 and her record under the Biden administration, along with Biden, and the fact that she lied about Biden. This is all going to come back to her. So she needs that momentum. So what they're doing is, don't talk now. Gather up all the strength. Get everyone moving in the same direction for as long as you possibly can before we start losing them. That's the political strategy. I get it. As a political strategist, I understand, and I can understand advising that of your client. As an American citizen, I despise it.
Agent Black, right here is Trump's Agenda 47 from his presidential campaign site. Agenda 47. Read the official 2024 Republican Party platform here. President Trump's 20 core promises to make America great.
Look at
The
that. 20
big one.
items. Go ahead.
Yeah, the big one, though, that he led with in his first plank was Internet Bill of Rights and reform of Article 230. That was the first plank of Agenda 47 when he started out. Was that he realized that after being basically attempted to be scrubbed off the internet, that people, this is a real problem. And so he finally was like, okay, we're going to do something about this, and here's what I want to do. So he took the suggestion that we tried to give him in 2016 about reforming Article 230, and he's actually going to do it when he's in office. And the big one is, with the reformation of Article 230, information vendors like Twitter or X or YouTube, Google, whatever, they're going to have to choose. Their platform is either a platform, and so is like treated as a common carrier, and therefore third-party content on that site will not be liable for it, or they can editorialize and be a publisher, but they won't have immunity from litigation. So that's his reformation right there. And then the Internet Bill of Rights is going to reflect freedom of speech, the ability to post whatever you would like freely, so long as it is not criminal in nature and doesn't violate the criminal code.
In America. Keyword, in America.
In
because
America.
To the UK constables who said they're going to come into America to try and arrest me and other Americans for having freedom of speech, try it. I dare you. Come into New York City. I dare you to try.
Okay. European Union regulator literally threatened Musk before the Trump broadcast.
Yeah. Try to censor them.
Okay. The European Commissioner, let me go ahead and share this so you know what I'm talking about. So the EU denies any involvement with this. Okay. But a European Commissioner for Internal Market Theory, Britain, wrote a letter to Elon Musk, basically threatening him about his interview with Trump. Okay. EU's warning shot at Musk Trump chat backfires. Top official criticized for meddling in U.S. politics.
By the way, before you go further, now, this guy, he's in charge of, basically, he's the internet police for the EU, essentially. He's unelected. He's trying to control the voices and conversations about candidates in the United States for our election. He's never himself been elected publicly. It was a private, behind the scenes, backdoor appointment for him to be in charge of the internet in this manner. And he's using that power that was given to him without any public approval to try and control a public election.
Now, here is the letter. Okay. And this is from Thierry Brenton's, right from his X account. Dear Mr. Musk, I am writing you in the context of recent events in the United Kingdom and in relation to the planned broadcast on your platform X of a live conversation between U.S. presidential candidate and yourself, which will also be accessible to your users in the EU. I understand, Bob, that you're currently doing stress tests on the platform. In this context, I am compelled to remind you of the due diligence obligations set out in the Digital Services Act as outlined in my previous letter. As the individual entity ultimately controlling a platform with over 300 million users worldwide, of which 1/3 in the EU, that has been designated as a very large online platform. You have the legal obligation to ensure X's compliance with EU law, and in particular, the DSA in the EU. So essentially, he was threatening Musk with legal action over the Trump interview.
Yeah. Now,
Well, he didn't do the interview for the EU. He did the interview for Americans.
Right.
he did it for the public. I mean, it was on Twitter. And I know Agent Black is saying, but our Constitution blocks some of these outside groups like the EU, like the United Kingdom, when they say that they're going, but they're still saying, see, here's the thing, and I think a lot of people miss this. They're making the threat, and they know they can't follow through, but they're counting on the person who's being threatened not knowing the law, not knowing that they have no power. It is the fear. They're looking at coercing and using fear to intimidate someone to do what they want, a tactic that we see commonly on the left, that they will intimidate people and coerce them to do something even when there is no reason why you should. And that is evil. That is authoritarian.
Well,
and I think it needs to be called out.
They also tried to hack the feed because the interview was almost, 50 minutes late because
there was a very heavy
they blamed her originally on everybody's being on Twitter for the interview, but then it came out that it was an actual hack. They were trying to shut it down.
Yeah. There was a lot of people trying to shut this down.
Well, they're terrified. They're terrified again. Why? Because there's substance. Whether you like it or not is meaningless. Whether you agree or not, meaningless. It is empirically, it is substance. It is substantive to have that conversation.
Well, and to point out, Elon said several times in that interview that he leans more progressive.
Yeah.
But yet he agrees with a lot of the things that Trump stands for.
Mm-hmm. And that backs up his history.
Something that people don't realize is that Elon is another one of those that has realized that this country is doomed unless the right people get in there and save this country.
Yeah, this is Harris's platform, her substantive platform. Bring back the joy, one selfie at a time.
Oh my God.
That's
Wow. Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
the rest of the world will attempt to use that fear to intimidate people online because they're pretty certain that the people that are online are probably lack a spine. They're
No,
hoping so. They're
I don't
hoping
think
so.
No,
But-
I think it's that everyone else in the world doesn't have a First Amendment. They're not used to having freedom. They're used to having governments tell them what they can and can't do.
But here's the thing: it only takes one administration to say, you know what? You're right. We should allow the extradition of our citizens overseas that violate international law, regardless of what the Constitution says. Now, Trump's in office. Say, for the sake of argument, Trump and Vance win the ticket. They're in the office. UK comes over and says, you have a number of citizens that we want extradited because we want to charge them under British law because they violated our law. They created a dangerous situation in our country. Well, we know that Trump and Vance are going to laugh at them and be like, no. However, the converse happens, and Kamala and Waltz are in, and these people are implicated or wanted to be extradited. How likely is it that they're going to tell the UK no?
Well, less likely, far less likely.
Yeah.
And they know that.
Thank you, Agent Black. We'll see you soon. You have a great night.
Yeah, good night.
Thanks for showing up. We've missed you. You generally have some very impactful insights to our conversation.
Well, he's been there's a lot of problems in England. There's been a lot of rioting. There have been a lot of threats from again, an example, the United Kingdom, one of the closest allies of the United States, very similar to us in so many ways, and yet they're running around arresting 55-year-old women because she had a post on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
What? And yet, and we're seeing similar thoughts coming out of Bill C-63 out of Canada is looking to do the same thing. We're seeing that a lot of the leftist strongholds around the world are trying to use force to silence people and make them comply because that's what the left does. And that's an idea that came from American institutions, that came from Berkeley, that came from Harvard, that came from Columbia. And we exported that around the world, and they're running with it because they're like, oh, yeah, you mean we can just fearmonger these people into obedience? And they don't have the freedom to say no. They don't have the freedom to complain because they never had that right. And that's what's dangerous about this, because it is a feedback loop. We exported these ideas, whether it be intersectionality or CRT, whether it be BLM or these fear-mongering tactics, this attack attitude by the left. We're exporting that around the world. And those very same intellectuals at these institutions, they're seeing, and the left goes further left. And they always want to go further left. You can never be leftist enough. And they're seeing Europe is going further left using their tactics. And they're like, we've got to come up with something new. We've got to move further left because they're still further left than us. And that is a vortex, not a spiral, not a circle. It's a vortex going down a drain. It's horrible.
But then the opposite happens when you have you're seeing right now there's a big push for that vortex to dissipate. There's a lot of civic nationalism that's happening, very populist type leanings of these parties over in Europe. They're not nearly as, I guess, right as you would consider maybe some American parties, but that are more conservative. But compared to European leftism, they are very conservative. Now, the UK is a bit of a fluke because the UK, as far as I understand it, that was a punishment election. They deliberately voted in Labour to punish the Conservatives because they didn't deliver.
Yes, because of Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak.
Right.
They were angry at them, but that's why they also gave a lot of support to Nigel Farage and the Reform UK Party, which would be seen in the United States as basically centrist.
Yeah.
To the UK, that would be considered right-leaning or center-right. In the United States, they'd be more centrist.
And the thing is, though, is that there's actually a long-term game in play there. Because I think the way Nigel explained it was, if Reform could get even one seat this election, his party, the Reform UK Party, to get one seat, now Labour has all these years to show how bad they are, and then the Reform Party will pick up the people that were dropped or abandoned by the Conservatives in the previous administration.
Mm-hmm.
So his hope is that he'll be, in the time that it takes Labour to really screw the pooch, he'll be able to build up a party strength that will allow his party to later on get into the ruling sphere of the government there. And I hope it does. I hope it does.
Will. He probably will.
I want to make one before Agent Black leaves. Hopefully he's still here. I'm going to refute the Magna Carta reference. That is a partially correct statement. However, the Petition of Right in 1628, which preceded. Oh, never mind. I'm wrong.
Bam.
Actually, Henry's charter started the whole rights and liberties discussion in 1152. Henry's second charter.
Well, and before, hopefully he hasn't left either, because with Agent not being on for a while, Agent, we're going to be on new night, new time starting next month.
Yes.
So make sure you look for us Wednesday nights at 7:00.
I'll tell him on Sunday. Just remind me, but I'll tell him. I'll put it out there on Sunday.
Okay.
Because I know it's.
Guys, it's 10 till. We got 2 more subjects. I think the next biggest one that we should talk about is our Social Security numbers being leaked in a hack this week.
Yeah.
What can we say about that, really? Am I surprised? No. You know, government this is what happens when you have an ineffective government.
Well, I guess the actual leak comes from a group that works for the government, National Public Data, and they basically do background searches and stuff for government entities and for corporations. And what ended up happening is a hacker group called USDOD claimed responsibility in April to have stolen personal records of about 2.9 billion people from National Public Data, and they were ransoming it. And then they turned around and released the whole thing for free on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And when they did that, people started sifting through the numbers, and what they found was that every single record has social security number, phone number, and alternate names and birth dates. So basically, you're pretty much, if you have a social security number, you're on this list.
Yeah.
And your data is now out there for anybody to claim. So one of the things that it's been suggested is that you monitor any kind of credit transactions that you have. If you have any passwords tied to your social security number, change them. You know,
Well, and that's actually one of the things they warned about when they came up with Social Security, was that it was not a national ID. And let me see if I can find my Social Security card. And it actually said on the Social Security card that
it's not an ID.
it was
yeah,
not
not for
you,
use
that
of
is not an
identification.
official ID.
Yeah,
Right. Which is good. It was never meant to be. But I'm not
Okay.
surprised that given, look at the people we have, as going back to my earlier conversation, you make it bigger. It's like our conversation about the elections with Georgia and Arizona. You add more and more layers. You have the more layers that you add in, the more access points you add in, the more error points you add in, it will fail. It's bound to fail. It has to fail because you're making it bloated and you can't secure the whole thing forever with so much access. It's not, I'm surprised I'm sure it's happened before. I'm sure.
And like I said, your Social Security number was never supposed to be a means of identifying you. It was to be the number. The only reason purpose for it was for your Social Security account. That was it, period.
Yeah, it was supposed to be between you and the Social Security Administration, nobody else.
Okay. It was not supposed to be used for identification for employment records. It wasn't supposed to be used for criminal background checks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and every other thing that's being used for today. That was not what SSNs were supposed to be used for. Okay, you were actually your driving record was supposed to be tied only to your driver's license number.
Yeah.
Okay, your criminal record, you were supposed to have a separate criminal ID record.
Yep.
Okay, etc. Okay, your Social Security number was not supposed to be as universally used as it is. And that's where we have made a huge security breach by using the singular number
For everything.
to identify people for everything.
You know, and
From
it's funny.
bank accounts to credit accounts to driving records to criminal records for everything, employment records, taxation, everything.
And what's interesting is that I'm a bit younger than the rest of you, and I don't say that with any kind of meanness, but I can remember growing up in the 90s that as early as like 91, 92, when I was being talked to about my Social Security number and why I should learn it, because my grandparents and my parents were very adamant that I try to memorize my Social Security number. They said, you're supposed to know it, but you're not to tell anybody about it. And I kind of looked at them. I'm like, well, why should I know it then? And they're like, because it will be important in certain situations, but you are not to share it with anybody that asks for it unless they are the Social Security Administration or it's like another government office or something. And they said, I can remember them saying, if somebody on the phone, for example, asks you for your Social Security number, it's none of your business, right? Don't put it on a form. It's none of their business, unless it's a form for the Social Security Administration or the Selective Service. That was the other one, was the Selective Service. If you had a Social Security number, you were, I can't remember if you were correct. I think you were required to add it on the form for your Selective Service, but it was not mandatory for you to have a Social Security number and sign up for the Selective Service.
Well, prior to 1974,
no.
Okay, And actually prior to 1969, because the Army and the Air Force were the first ones to start using them.
Yeah.
Social security numbers were not used by the military to identify military members. They had their service numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
And then after that, okay, by 1974, every branch of the military was using social security numbers.
Yeah, you open up the box, everything, Pandora's box. You open it and everything's out. Can't put it back in. I don't think this is going to be as bad as I know. There's a lot of people fear mongering about it, and people are terrified and like, oh my God, now you've got to go and buy this service or that service to protect
Your
yourself.
social security number has been leaked many, many times before.
yeah.
Exactly.
You think your social security number is not out there? You're wrong.
Of course it is, and that's why I don't think this was such a big news story. I think the reason why the story was such a big news in this cycle is that they wanted to use it as a break. It basically
A distraction.
It was a distraction against what was going on with Tim Wals, because that was still continuing to gain traction. People were still pissed off about his military record, and that gave a pause in the media to talk about anything else. And then you notice they're not talking about it now. They don't care.
Is there's other issues that have came up about Wals besides his military record.
Well, yeah, now everyone's
besides
playing
his
else.
track record as governor.
Yeah.
Okay. The fact that he literally lied about DUI that he received. Okay, said that he actually drove himself to the police station, that he wasn't drunk. And that is all misunderstanding. When in fact that it actually came out that he was in fact drunk, that he was not allowed to drive his own vehicle to the police station, that he was arrested for driving while intoxicated, or under the influence. Okay. Several things that he is claiming as governor that he supposedly implemented were in fact not implemented by him. They just happened to occur while he was governor, including new housing and several other things. There are multiple things where Wals is trying to steal the glory for that are untrue, that he was minimally involved or not involved at all.
Gee, what a shock.
I think the other well, I was just going to say real quick, the other part of this is that the company National Public Data was trading in information that was not public.
Yeah.
So that's the other side of this, is that there were customers that were notified that their public data had been collected, but then it came to light that they actually were also trading in non-public data, private data that they had scraped from other places, other sources, that they never told the customers had ever been taken, but were taken. So that's the other half of that.
Happens a lot.
Last
Good.
topic: New York changes gun rules.
Oh boy.
Well,
This-
New York
This
is
one
always strange.
cracked me up because the article I read on it said that it was for non-residents.
Well, it is for
My
non-residents.
question is, why are you changing the law for non-residents when you're so hard on the residents?
The thing is, they can't be hard on the residents anymore. Okay. It used to be in New York City that if you were not a resident in New York City, you were not able to apply for a gun permit in New York City
Right.
at all.
Mhm.
But because of the Bruin ruling, that is no longer valid. So New York City has been forced to change its rules and to allow non-residents to be able to apply for gun permits within the city.
Right.
Okay, that's essentially what's going on with this.
Yes, in
And
New York.
since
I thought
New
it
York
was
City's been spanked again for having egregious gun laws
I thought it
in
was
violation of the Second Amendment.
I thought it was for carrying too, because the articles I read.
That's what a gun permit's for.
Right. But
Is
yet
so you
they're
can
so
carry.
okay. But my thing is, I didn't see anything in the article I read that showed where it changed anything for the residents.
Because those laws had already been changed.
Even though they're stopping everybody on the subways, and they've got you can't
That's a
have a
different
gun
thing.
in New York
That's
City.
a different thing.
Now you're talking about Fourth Amendment rights, Third Amendment rights. You're talking about other rights. The Second Amendment, excuse me, after the Supreme Court struck down Governor Kathy Hochul's draconian reimagining of the Second Amendment, which would prevent anyone, basically it was her way of preventing anyone from ever getting a gun in New York State, that was struck down as unconstitutional. She immediately, because they knew it was going to be struck down, it was already a given, they immediately that week came out with a new set of gun laws, 12 of them in fact, to do exactly the same thing, just in 12 different ways. And so that's what citizen residents of New York have to contend with. What they left out of that, they were so busy trying to stop citizen residents, they didn't address non-residents because they had a priority.
Now, here's under the Bruin. New York used to be a state that law was written may issue a firearms license, okay, instead of shall issue. When it was written as may issue, you would have to show cause as to why you needed a firearm license. Okay, when the Bruin decision came out and it said that New York was in violation of the Second Amendment by requiring people to show cause of why they needed a firearms license.
Okay.
Then the law was instantly changed at that point because it was no longer enforceable. So now, if you apply for a gun permit, then they have to issue it unless they find grounds not to.
Which is what they created. The laws were there to create the grounds to deny you, to put you into, put all the barricades in front of you so that you can.
And then what's happened here recently is a non-resident of New York City decided to apply for a gun permit in New York City so that he would comply with New York City law. And when he was refused because he was not a resident, he filed suit, which forced New York City to change their law to allow non-residents because they knew that they would lose it. And they were afraid that if they lost that also, it would further expand gun rights. Okay, New York City did a similar thing when they dropped their law that forbidded people from traveling outside of New York City with firearms because they had a lawsuit against them on that, and they were literally forced to amend their law that prevented people from traveling outside of New York City with a firearm that they were legally allowed to own.
New York only changes its gun laws if it knows it's going to lose, or they figured out a new way to try and screw over gun owners. They really don't want to change anything. They just don't want people to have guns. Not that they don't, because plenty of people have guns throughout all of New York. Of course they do. And that's the thing. They're not stopping gun. The number one thing, and people should really think about this. The number one thing you're promised every time, whether it's local, federal, state level, it doesn't matter. You're always promised this gun law is to make you safe. And
Mhm.
they never do.
No, they don't.
And criminals
And
always
Grace,
last.
to address your comment, it used to be in New York City that guns were not allowed unless you could show cause for needing to have a firearm, i.e., armed security. If you
High profile actors and
right,
entertainers.
okay, you had to show reason why you were put in undue, that you had a higher than average
Risk.
to your safety
Large
in order
deposits
to
of
be
cash.
able to obtain a gun permit within New York City.
You have a business, you're making large deposits in cash, say a laundromat as an example. They would apply, not guaranteed to get it, but they would
No.
apply saying, well, I have a higher risk of being robbed and mugged.
And then you'd have to jump through all kinds of hoops in order to get it, unless you knew the right people.
Almost no one ever got it. Next to impossible. You
Right.
really had to be a very well-known actor. Not just an actor, a well-known actor.
Yeah, you had to be well connected.
So that's New York. Again,
Or a
gun laws
politician.
fail. Go ahead.
Or a politician. Politicians can get guns if they want to get.
No, actually, most of them couldn't.
No?
No.
Doesn't
Schumer.
George-
If you got a guy like Schumer, yes. If you're
No.
talking about whoever's in charge of the New York 15th Congressional, no one knows who it is. No one cares. If you're
I thought
talking about
maybe,
assemblyman, the assembly for the 121st district, or state senator for the 52nd district, no one gives a damn about them. Don't. No, wouldn't get a damn thing. No.
Doesn't Giuliani have his carry permit?
Well, he was mayor.
Yeah.
That's why he got it.
Different level of politician there.
Hmm.
High profile.
Okay, he is very high profile. Number one. Number two, the police commissioner serves at the discretion of the mayor. And
Right.
the police commissioner is the one in charge of issuing firearms permits.
Well, isn't that convenient?
Yes, it's corrupt. It's absolutely corrupt. But it goes back to New York is almost as corrupt as Illinois and Chicago, almost as corrupt, but absolutely just as inept. And I mean, it's empirical. It's not even like ooh, if maybe. It's not political. It's empirical. The data's out there. Completely inept, and that ineptitude comes from the amount of corruption that exists.
Yeah. Lots
Okay.
of corruption.
So that's pretty much it for what we had for this week. There are many other things that we can go on about, as there is every week. But if we continued going, we'd end up till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning discussing different things that are going on.
Mhm.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and remind everybody that starting September 4th, we will be changing our night to Wednesday night, and we will also be changing our time from 9 p.m. Eastern time to 7 p.m. Eastern time. Again, that's starting September 4th. We will be on at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So update your calendars, everything else. Probably we'll do several more announcements that we will be changing our date and time, our day and time, between now and then, to help remind everybody and let everybody know to find us on our new date and time. Day and time, not date, day.
Right.
So that being said, as we say every week, the only ones that are going to change things are we the people. We can't expect politicians to change them for us. Regardless of all the promises that they make, it will never happen. Okay? We are a government that was set up and established to be operated and ran by we the people, not by politicians. Okay? With that being said, get involved. Get out and vote. Help choose the candidates. Quit settling for what the party forces upon you. And I'm especially talking to the Democrat Party right now. You were forced to accept Kamala Harris as your candidate. You didn't choose her. You were forced to accept her. You were forced to accept a candidate that has no policies, has no standing on issues, has no platform. Think about it. You know nothing about this woman. You don't know her positions or anything. All you can do is look at what her positions were in 2020 when she was running for president then. She has not expanded on it. In fact, a lot of the issues that she was so dead set against in 2020, she's now for.
Or at least she says
So-
she's for it.
Yeah.
Theoretically, yeah.
So choose wisely, folks. Okay. You may not agree with Trump. Hell, I don't agree with Trump on everything. Okay. But as of right now, I at least know where he stands. I at least know what his positions are. I don't know that about Harris.
Then you'll know where he's going to be, because you can take a look at his event calendar and find out that he will be in Wilkes-Barre tomorrow.
Mhm.
Doors open at Mohegan Sun at noon, and he speaks at 4. And I will be on the ground with my wife and a neighbor, and we will be at the Trump rally tomorrow in Wilkes-Barre.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So I'm going to try and get some footage and cover it all, and, hopefully not fight too hard with parking, although I don't think that will be successful.
No, you're gonna have fun getting out.
I probably won't show up until the next morning.
You didn't think about it. You're thinking about getting there. No, the trick is getting back.
Yeah. I'll have to try to park towards the exit.
Find somewhere to eat after the event. Go eat.
Yeah.
I would recommend this. I've been to several Trump rallies for news coverage and as an individual, both. And I can tell you, you have to show up early if you plan to get in.
Right.
We're talking 6 hours, 8 hours, between 6 and 8 hours ahead of time.
Yeah.
To be able to have a decent, you're only going to be a couple hundred people deep in at that point. But the other thing is plan. Now, obviously, you can't really bring anything.
I will
Travel
be
light.
right back.
Sure.
Okay.
Travel light.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because you're not going to be able to. There is Secret Service, and nowadays even more Secret Service checking everything. So don't carry, don't bring a bunch of liquids, a couple bottles of water, but expect that you're going to lose it. So don't bring anything expensive.
Right.
Don't break anything that has big poles or things that can break or can be used as a weapon. Just don't bring it. They're not going to let you in with it. But also plan when you leave, have a plan, go somewhere to eat, somewhere that's in walking distance, walk on over, get something to eat, sit back and relax, because you've got 10,000 people trying to leave that same area, trying to get on transportation, get onto the roads, do whatever. Waste an hour or two, then leave. You'll thank me for that.
We'll keep that in mind. Thank you.
Okay. So sorry about that. I had to step out for just a second.
Yep.
So another reminder that I'm going to pass along, and I ask this every week: get involved with a constitutional supporting organization. I don't care which one. I would like to have you join with Liberty First Foundation. That is our mission, is to restore this country back to its constitution constitutional roots. Okay,
Yes,
I believe a
very nice.
lot of the issues that we face today could be solved if our government actually adhered to the Constitution. But there are other organizations, if you don't care for what we do, there are plenty of other organizations that you can join. 10th Amendment Center, for one, the Institute of the Constitution. There are numerous organizations. Okay, but get involved, become active. Okay, and if you don't want to get involved, at least support an organization that is going to support your rights and fight and defend them. Okay, you can find us at l1f.us. Very soon we are going to be doing some updates and so forth. We got some new team members that are going to be coming on staff that are going to be helping us along those lines. So stay posted, and we will keep you informed about some of the new updates that are going to be coming out. With that, I want to thank everybody that's in the audience and contributing to the chat. As always, we appreciate your input. It does help.
Yep.
Michael, you have any parting words?
No, not at the moment.
How about you, Dal?
No, just reiterate what you said and make sure you check everybody out. Like Michael Voss's No Sound Bites Allowed. His show is on 12, is every Sunday at 2:30 in Eastern time. Right? And then, you know, we have a lot of outreach. You can find us all on Twitter. All of us have an X account, so you can find us there. And I would suggest more strongly that you join with us when it comes to a constitutional group, because here, who you see on screen is pretty much the majority of the group so far. I mean, our numbers are not as large as, say, the GOA, you know, the Gun Owners of America. We're certainly not as large as FPC, but we are building an organization from the ground up. So if you feel like you want your voice to matter the most, now is the time to join us. Join us and become one of the first 250 members to be part of the Liberty First Foundation. It's $15 a year annually, and you will help us towards our work of restoring this country to its constitutional roots. And you also get a really, cool group of people to hang out with that will actually listen to what you say instead of just being another donor. So that's my 2 cents. How about you, Jen?
Yeah.
What do you got?
Like, share, and talk to your friends about what's going on in this country. It's not time for us to keep our mouths shut anymore.
Yeah, don't let the conversation end with us.
Yep. Take it to your neighbors. Take it to the streets. Talk to everybody you know. Don't be afraid to wear shirts that support your idea, even. If you don't want to talk about it right away, you don't know how to broach the subject, go look around. There are a lot of political shirts out there that will send the message for you, and then it'll help break the ice and get people to talk to you. Or beat you over the head with a sock with a soap in it. It just depends.
You want to really stir some emotion? Put a Trump sign in your yard.
Yeah,
Oh, and electrify it. Did you see that?
definitely. I've seen that. Yeah.
That was the moron of the week. I like that one. Guy comes in to rip out the sign and he gets a shock of his life.
Okay, folks, we will see you next week. Next Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Good night, all.
Thank you, everyone.